Good morning. Today we are going to learn about this word right here, Purim. So every year the Jews celebrate a holiday and it's called Purim. And they remember a time a long time ago when God saved them from an evil man. And that evil man's name was Haman. Okay? Oh, you don't like Haman either. Okay. There's 4 characters. We have a queen, we have a king, we have Mordecai, and we have Haman in our story today. Okay? So every time I say Haman, I want you to boo. Can you do that? All right, let's try that. So as I said, Haman, he was evil and he was a hateful man, and he hated anybody that was different. And he really didn't like Mordecai because Mordecai would not bow down to him. And Mordecai was a hero because he saved the king from getting killed. And he told the king that there was a plot against him. As I said, Haman hated all Jews and he wanted to get rid of them. So he went and told the king a lie about the Jews. And the king did not know that the queen was a Jew. So Queen Esther was a Jew. Okay, I want you to listen real close to our story today and see if you think Haman was a bad guy as well, okay? Esther was a wonderful person. I also want you to pay close attention to something that she did in the story. Listen carefully to the story. When the Jews heard the law of Medes and Persians to have them killed on the 13th day of the 12th month, they started weeping and wailing. Many put on sackcloths and ashes as a sign of mourning. When Mordecai heard of Haman's plan to kill the Jews, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went around the city wailing loudly and bitterly. When Esther heard about Mordecai's distress, she sent Hathach, one of the king's servants, with clothes for him to put on instead of a sackcloth. But he refused to put them on. Hathach was sent again by Esther to find out what was troubling Mordecai. Mordecai gave Hathach the text of the new law and explained how much Haman had promised to pay into the treasury to destroy the Jews. He asked Hathach to tell Esther to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and plead with him to save her people and the Jews. Hathach reported back to Esther, anyone who approaches the king's inner chambers without being summoned by the king is put to death unless the king extends his golden scepter to them and spares their life. I have not been summoned by the king for 30 days, said Esther. Esther's words were reported back to Mordecai. She sent her message back. Don't think because you live in a palace, you alone of all the Jews will escape. If you remain silent, the Jews will perish. Who knows, but you have been chosen as queen to help us at this time. Esther sent a reply to Mordecai. Gather all the Jews in Susa to pray and fast for me. Don't eat for 3 days. I will pray and fast with you. Then I will go to the king, even though he has not summoned me to. If I die, then I die. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robe and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. When the king saw her, he was pleased and held out his golden scepter to spare her life. What is your request, he asked. Even if you ask for up to half of the kingdom, I will give it to you. I would like to invite the king and Haman to a special banquet I have prepared, Esther replied. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. What's your request? The king asked. I would like to invite the king and Haman to another banquet tomorrow. Then I will ask the king's questions. Haman left the palace in a good mood, but when he saw that Mordecai had not bowed or shown him respect, he was full of rage. Haman went to his friend and Zeresh his wife and boasted to them about the great wealth his many sons, and about the ways the king had honored him. I have been invited to a banquet by the king and queen tomorrow. Now remember, it's Queen Esther, and she's Jewish. But I cannot be happy while Mordecai, the Jew, is sitting at the king's table. His wife and friends had an idea. Have a pole set up, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai on it. This suggestion delighted Haman, and he erected the pole, and it was 75 feet high. That night, the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of Chronicles of his reign to be brought in, and he read to him. When the king read how Mordecai had exposed the plot to kill him, he asked, what honor was given to Mordecai for doing that? So remember, Mordecai saved the king from being killed. The attendants replied, nothing has been done. Who is in the royal court? The king asked. Haman is standing in the court, they replied. He had come to ask for Mordecai to be executed by being impaled on the pole he had erected. Bring Haman in, the king ordered. Now remember, Haman is the bad guy, and he's really mean to the Jewish people. The king asked Haman, what should be done for a man the king wants to honor? Thinking that the king wanted to honor him, Haman replied, put the man in a royal robe, and the king has worn, and with a horse the king is ridden on. Then get the king's most noble prince to lead the horse through the city, proclaiming, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Go at once and get the robe and horse, the king commanded, and then do as you have suggested for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the gate. Do not neglect any details. So Haman had to robe Mordecai, put him on a horse, and lead him through the city, proclaiming, this is what is done for the man the king honors. A humiliated Haman rushed home in grief and reported what had happened to his wife and friends. Since Mordecai the Jew has begun his downfall, you cannot stand against him, they replied. You will come to ruin. At that moment, the king's servants arrived to take Haman to a banquet Esther had prepared for him, the king. God has a spring of prints all year long on you guys, okay? And wherever God has placed you is where he wants you to be. And he wants you to be just like Queen Esther and do, even if it's hard, he wants you to do it anyway. Do what's the best thing to do.